Hi, I'm Marilyn. Welcome back to My Left Frying Pan. And for all you loyal fans, hopefully you saw yesterday's because today is the second episode we're releasing in the same week. Yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day and the love of my life was on the show, so if you want to check him out, make sure that you go and watch International Women's Day video. Today, I am celebrating one of my favorite Canadian superhero foods. Canadian flaxseed. Whoa. I posted on my Facebook page, not my personal Facebook page, but my author page, and you just have to like it. Here's the picture. Just like that, you can follow all the good stuff. Anyway, I posted the question, what do you want to know about flax? So thank you for all your questions, and I'm going to try to answer them all right now. The first one, and a ton of you asked it, like, how does flax come? Well, it comes in two different varieties. There's the brown one, and there's the golden one. Now, nutritionally speaking, they're pretty much the same so that you can interchange them. The trick is that you don't want to eat them whole. You want to eat them ground. If you eat them whole, it's like, hello, goodbye, see you next July. So you have to grind them. Oh, I was going to show you grinding flax the right way, but I wish Auntie Hack was here so she could show us some, crazy internet hacks. Clicking my fingers worked yesterday and I got Scott to appear. Maybe it'll work with Auntie Hack. Oh! What are you wearing? Well, I'm wearing my Canadian flax superhero outfit.
Well, you look ridiculous.
Well, you look drunk.
Oh, bingo. Well, I was just Netflixing and chilling, and here I am.
Hey, listen, have you seen any grinding flax hacks on the internet?
Oh, darling, of course I've seen two pitiful hacks.
Really?
Listen, lovey. I was having such a wonderful time Netflixing and chilling. Would you mind sending me back?
Well, sure, whatever that is. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, good.
Hey, geez, I gotta try that more often. Okay, so the only way that you can really grind flaxseed is in a coffee bean mill, all right? A hammer, a rock, a rolling pin, they just don't work. So we're gonna add some flaxseed into, this is the only thing I grind in this, no coffee, just flaxseed. And you want to grind it up so that it's not a fine meal unless you want to bake with it and then you want to... Okay, more questions from Facebook. Lynn Richards Foley asked this question. I help a diabetic group on Facebook and I would love to know how flaxseed can help with people living with diabetes. Okay, it's a great question because people who are living with diabetes should be having flax every single day because it helps control their blood glucose. Bonus. Next question. Well, how can I use flax? Well, you can sprinkle it on yogurt, you can sprinkle it on your cereal, you can throw it in a smoothie, or you can bake with it. I'm going to make some grab and goes later on. Next question, how do I store flaxseed? Okay, so you can store the seeds whole in a cool, dark place, but once it's ground up, and that you can do that for up to a year, once it's ground up, it needs to get stored in the refrigerator for up to 3 months. We go through a ton of it here. I pretty much grind some up every single week. Next question. Now, this was by 3 different people, and I thought it was important to name them. Eileen Manion, I probably messed up your name, I'm sorry. Karen Seeley Lowe, and Lynn Towns. You all said, should people with diverticulitis use flaxseed? And this was such a great question. So I know the answer, but I wanted to go to an authority, so I went to the Canadian Digestive Health Foundation. They're a group of health professionals that only talk about GI or gastrointestinal health. And they all said, yes, you should be eating flaxseed, but make sure that it's ground up. So you want to grind it up really fine, but you need that soluble fiber to help bulk up the stuff in your bowel to help things keep moving. So flaxseed is good for everybody. I like to grind it up for baking, and you can eat it whole if you want to have, a hello, goodbye kind of thing. But seriously, we're going to grind it up for this recipe called my world famous grab and goes. Everything I make in Healthy Starts Here is world famous. So let's look at all the fabulous ingredients that go into one of these breakfast grab and goes. The first one is my superhero Canadian food, which is the ground flaxseed. All right. Remember, lots of fiber, omega-3s, plant lignans. It's so good for you. And you should be having 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flax every single day. All right. The next ingredient is some oat bran. And then we've got oat flakes, the large ones. And then I have steel cut or Irish oats. I have wheat germ, some cinnamon. There's 2 tablespoons and it's not a mistake. There's baking soda. There's chopped walnuts. There's whole wheat flour. And there's chocolate chips and also dried cranberries. And those are all the dry ingredients. Now the wet ingredients are brown sugar. I know it's not really a wet ingredient, but I like to dissolve it in and make it more liquefied. There's canola oil. There's pure vanilla extract. There is some baby food prunes. Now, this you find in the baby food department. They come in little jars, and you need one of those little jars. You can get the recipe below, so don't, if you're writing this down, don't have a panic attack. And 2 omega-3 eggs. Okay, so let's start cooking. All that superhero stuff really makes you kind of thirsty. Hey, one of my favorite snacks to have in the Canadian winter, because we don't grow these in Canada, but in Chile right now, it's summertime, and they grow the most fantastic grapes. So, you know, when you're feeling a little bit kind of ziggity, you can have a grape. It just kind of bumps up your energy. Oh my gosh, they're so good. Okay, so we're going to mix these liquid ingredients in with the dry. And this takes a lot of mixing, so I'm so glad that I have my superpowers today. Here we go. Okay, well, when all of the dry ingredients are mixed into the wet, it should look like that. And then now you've already preheated your, oh my goodness, you've already preheated your oven. This superhero stuff's hard work, to 375, and it makes 18. So you've got 2 cookie sheets. Remember, a cookie sheet doesn't have any edges, okay? So if it has edges, they're gonna steam. So you want a cookie sheet that, you know, basically you can see right, no edges, all right? And then line it with parchment paper. And then using an ice cream scoop with a release button, this is how they all get to be the same size. And grab some of your dough, and then you're going to flatten it down. And if it sticks to your hand, just get a damp cloth. I can't find my damp cloth. Okay, never mind. Anyway, okay, so we're just going to do all 18, and then they bake in the oven for 13 to 15 minutes. So the breakfast grab and goes are baked, and I cooled them on a wire rack, and now they're all ready to pack up. And this is what I love to do. I like to freeze them individually. Why? Because the reason they're called grab and goes is that you stick this in the freezer, and on the mornings that you're too busy to have a sit-down breakfast that's got 5 grams of fiber in it, you grab it out of the freezer and you go. And so by the time you get to work or to school, it's thawed out. It's so good for you. I want to give a big shout out to all the flax growers in Canada. It's wonderful to have partnered with you. Everything you ever wanted to know about flaxseed, you can go to healthyflax.org. It's got tons of recipes and tons of information. And before I say adios muchachos, I'd like to say that I am a big fan of all produce. I want you to eat, 7 to 10 servings of produce every single day. But in the winter months in Canada, it's kind of, maybe a little bleak. I love apples, I love all the stuff that we're growing. But if we don't grow something in Canada, I'm not adverse to using it or buying it. And one of the things I love to buy is grapes because it's summer in Chile. Now, Produce Made Simple is a wonderful website, producemadesimple.ca. They've got tons of information on all kinds of produce grown all over the world, and they've got tips on how to pick them, how to store them. One of the ones I loved about grapes is that always look for a green stem. The green stem means it's really, really fresh. So if it's all dried out, those grapes were picked a long time ago. These ones from Chile are really lovely and green. And you'll notice that they have kind of what they call a bloom on them. A bloom is on blueberries too. That doesn't mean they're bad. It actually means they're really fresh. And so what you do is look for the bloom, look for the green stems, bring them home, store them in the refrigerator in a loose plastic bag. And then when you want to go and eat one, you just break off a stem or how many you want, give it a rinse, and then eat them. Or in this case, I'm going to pack it for another part of my healthy little breakfast that's a grab and go. So a portable snack, you gotta love them. You know what? I don't know what net flicking and chilling is, so I'm going to go off and see what Andy Hack's up to. Okay, till the next time. Now I know what net flicking and chilling is. I can never get that visual out of my head. Oh my goodness. See you next time.